Welcome back to Bit by Bit. Today I'm speaking with Self-Banked, the mystery man with some of the best memes on Twitter. We recorded this episode a couple of weeks ago, but it's more relevant than ever. Just to give you an idea who we're speaking to, here's his bio. All in. Decentralise everything. No force can withstand the power of an idea whose time has come. Buying Bitcoin is the real protest. Opt out. This is something that I've discussed with friends and family for a long time now. With all the protests that are going on and all the madness that we've seen so far in 2020, it seems that people have had enough. We now have a real way to protest. This is what Self-Banked is trying to do, is trying to share this idea through his memes, trying to wake people up and trying to help people. His pinned tweet: do you get the impression something else is about to happen? It feels like a wave is building, a mass awakening, a realization that the system needs to be torn down and replaced. Gradually, then suddenly, we are witnessing a period of great fundamental change. There is a mass awakening, and although not everyone has put all the pieces together and found the solution, everyone understands that there are some major problems. Both Self-Banked and I feel that Bitcoin is the solution. We dive into that today, and I really enjoyed this one. The audio quality could be better. I've done my best to clear it up my end. I hope you enjoy. I really enjoyed chatting to him, and I'd love to have him on again. Enjoy. Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, Max, hi. I'm sorry I'm late.
That's all right, no problem at all.
Very kind of you. I was doing a little kind of barbecue out the back, and it was a bit slow to get started.
No problem. You're still using coals, are you?
Charcoal, yeah. I was going for charcoal. I thought
do the job properly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm too lazy for all that now. Now that I've had gas, it's so much quicker. But it is nice. It is nice to have the coals.
It is nice to have the coals, and you really can, and so you really can smell afterwards as well, like you've had a barbecue after the coals as well.
That's it. That's it. Oh well, yeah. It's nice to speak to you, because we've been chatting a little bit on the group, which has been really interesting, and I've been having a look through some of your memes, some of the best memes on Twitter. So I thought, right, I'm going to have to get this guy on and talk some Bitcoin.
Cool. I am honoured, and so thank you very much for the invite. I'm very pleased to be here.
Pleasure. So, like I said to you off air, I don't tend to have this too structured. It's just a chance for me to speak to other Bitcoiners, people who are passionate about this stuff. And if people listen, then that's great. A few people seem to be enjoying it, so I'm going to keep going.
Cool.
It's a chance to get to know some people. So it's nice to hear from someone who's also in the UK, because almost everyone is US based that I speak to. There doesn't seem to be so many of us.
No, I mean, I think it's going to grow, and I think this and so this kind of coin floor group that we've got going will hopefully be part of that. But it's going to have to grow here, and there clearly are a lot of great people in the UK scene, but a lot of them perhaps do leave. Adam Back from the big one.
Yeah, exactly. You think that most people are sort of going across to America once they've been in for a few years, or?
I don't know. There certainly are people who have done that, but I mean, I'm just thinking about the future as well. I mean, people will probably move if they're very embedded in this. I think there'll be a tendency to up sticks. I mean, I'd certainly be up for it.
It's weird, isn't it? I mean, we'll get into a little bit more about how you found this and how long you've been involved and things. But I sort of, before Bitcoin, would never have thought of America as a place I would even consider living. But the more I've been involved, and the more I've sort of understood that what the founding fathers wanted and the idea behind America, what it really should or will eventually hopefully stand for, I really, really like. And I just wasn't really aware of it, because it's not really the way it's painted or necessarily the way it's gone, but the idea behind it's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Although it doesn't seem to be the best place for crypto and for Bitcoin at the moment. I mean, their legislation is not the easiest, is not the kind of friendliest, apart from certain little hotspots like Wyoming.
Yeah, that looks interesting.
And so are we recording now or not?
We are, yeah, we're recording. I tend to do an intro before. Off air, I'll do a little intro. We can just explain now. So Self-Banked is the name you're going by. And for anyone who isn't already following you on Twitter, where can they find you?
Twitter at Self-Banked, and that's kind of banked with a KT at the end of it instead of ED. I've been on Twitter for about 8 or 9 months now, with a just sort of complete sort of Bitcoin only kind of channel there. I got to a point where I just said to myself, I'll do one meme a day, and then it's grown a bit.
You've got some great ones on there. For anyone who isn't already following, go and do it now, because there's some great stuff on there. I really enjoyed it. How did you get into the memeing? Is it something that you've done previously in another sector, or is it something?
And so yes and no. And so I sold some Bitcoin in 2017, and I bought a small commercial kind of property and started a little kind of restaurant.
Okay, awesome.
It's a kind of tapas bar place, and I just ran the social media for it and continue to do so, and just sort of learned how to do a few graphics and how to communicate with an audience a little bit more than I had before, and I quite enjoyed it. And then, as I said, I just thought I want to do some evangelizing on the Bitcoin scene and try to communicate just a few of these ideas that I'm learning, more so for my understanding and my articulation of it, really. But it's been great to have a growing audience, and yeah, it's good fun. I suppose I'm addicted, like my wife gives me a bit of grief, but
mine too.
Yeah. But it's for the greater good, and at some point they will learn that. I guess. I hope.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, just reading on your Twitter, so you've got all in, decentralize everything. No force can withstand the power of an idea whose time has come. Bitcoin is the real Occupy Wall Street. Opt out. And I think that's really powerful. That it seems there's a small core group of us who feel a similar way. And once it gets under your skin and once it clicks, you can feel the passion. And that's why I love having these sort of conversations. I love chatting to other Bitcoiners who are on the same wavelength, because there's not many other people in the world who, some of the stuff we talk about and the ideas we have, you talk to a normal person about it and they look at you like you're mental, but it feels like it makes sense to me anyway, and it looks like it does with you as well. So how did you first find Bitcoin? What was your story? How did you find it?
So just to kind of go over that as well, I agree that it's a very powerful kind of movement at the moment, and it is quite difficult to integrate it into your sort of kind of normie life, but it feels like it's gathering such a lot of momentum at the moment, which is just really, really exciting. And so I discovered it in like late 2013, early kind of 2014, and so just really reading about the Silk Road. At the time, I wanted to buy some DMT after listening to the Joe Rogan podcast. I never really got the balls to do, the kind of buying of the DMT, but it was an opportunity to learn.
Yes.
I discovered the Tor network, and I discovered the cryptocurrency scene, and kind of Bitcoin was truly fascinating. And then early 2014, I just kind of bought a few, and I started to buy over that next kind of 12 to 18 months or so. And then it got a bit kind of quiet for a bit, and obviously 2016 to kind of 2017 happened, and then I ended up kind of selling the majority of my Bitcoin in sort of mid kind of 2017, and then rediscovered it again early last year when the excitement began to grow again. And I just think it's more than money. I think it's very kind of political, and as I say, the movement feels very powerful, and it feels like it's going to go somewhere really exciting.
Yeah, I think like you just said, it's not just about money. And again, that's a common theme when you understand what this can potentially do, it's so much bigger. It's so much bigger than just making some money or having a slightly better payment system or, an investment. This is actually about completely changing the world in the way that almost is getting rid of the hierarchical structure, which is enormous.
It's enormous, and it's a theft, isn't it? It's a theft of your time and your value and your expertise and your work. And it's horrible to see people get robbed like that. And this rich and kind of poor divide has just grown and grown and grown, and it's quite obscene. And I think, we have been offered a tool here that allows people to store their wealth and their value, with a very high likelihood of it accumulating even more of that in the future. And that frees people up, I think, to focus on what they want to do with their lives, about what they want to do best, and not have to worry about all these complex kind of financial sort of vehicles that the traditional kind of legacy finance system encourages you to get into if you want to make investments, which I think is a bit of a drain on people's kind of time and their energy. I don't think it really kind of contributes to society. So I think it could potentially kind of change a lot. And I see it as more than a savings vehicle, but I do see it as a form of security for my future and my family.
That's a big point, really, is, when you're talking about the legacy financial system, it's so complicated. And I mean, to my mind, I can't 100% prove this, but I would say that the level of corruption and insider trading and all the rest of it that goes on is so high that for the average person, you're almost guaranteed to fail. And even if you don't fail, you have to invest. If you are to succeed, you have to invest so much time and energy just to preserve your wealth, which you're earning most likely in another industry. You'd be better spending that time specializing. And when you really break it down, it's a weird system to have, a doctor having to then spend a load of time on their investments, or trust a financial advisor who generally can't do the job properly, because if they could, then they would just earn the money for themselves and invest it wisely, and they wouldn't have to deal with other people. So you're stuck in between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, it's all very opaque. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of extra kind of fees involved. There's a high barrier to entry that cuts a lot of people off from the ability to be able to store and accumulate their wealth. And so Bitcoin is the opposite to that. It's a great kind of leveler in terms of there is no barrier to entry, really, is there? I mean, as long as you've got the nounce to work out how to get your money on and off an exchange, there's no sort of minimum that you really have to meet. You can buy £25 worth of Bitcoin if you want to.
And that's the thing, is I think a lot of people misunderstand, or just not even misunderstand, just literally don't know, because when you hear Bitcoin, you think, that's one thing. That's a bit, it's a coin. That's all someone's going to think, and I have to have one of them. That's the least amount I can have, is one of them. And then they look at the price.
Yeah, I think we have to change the unit bias from Bitcoin to sats. Yeah. And that needs to come pretty quickly. And then, this is what all the kind of shit coins have really made such a lot of kind of headway on, is their ability to trick people into thinking they're getting something quite cheap, because
unit bias.
More of something which is more and more worthless. But and so the sats narrative is perfect. It's going to be a really big kind of accelerator for things, I think. As of course has the COVID virus. Huge accelerator.
Yeah, that's a really weird one within the Bitcoin community. Not so much outside. Like outside, we're both in England. We're not too far from each other actually. And the people that I deal with day to day, normal people, are all still shitting themselves about COVID. That's the general feeling from most people I speak to. Whereas within the Bitcoin community, sort of half the people think, okay, this is a really ideal way to take control of more power. It's a way to take people's liberties away. It's being used to attack its citizens.
And then on the extreme end, a lot of people are saying, well, actually, this might be engineered so that we have an excuse for the issue that we had, the bubble that was building anyway. And we've all been watching and we all know can't go on forever. So there's a sort of, there's a varied viewpoint within Bitcoin, but it's so different to what I see outside. Is that the same with you?
It's difficult to know what people are thinking about it, really, and it's difficult to know what's acceptable to kind of talk about.
Yeah.
And for how far does the conspiracy go? I really don't know. But what you said, I think, there was very good. I think the everything bubble is going to be popping pretty bloody soon, and it is bloody convenient to have a way to an excuse. And explain that to people. Oh, it was the virus. That's why we closed your entire small business networks for 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 months, or however long it's going to take. The initial reaction to the virus was quite delayed, and it wasn't adequate. And then it's been compensated for by an overreaction, which is heavy-handed and probably kind of disproportionate to the extent of the mortality rates and the healthcare implications. I mean, so I work in healthcare, so my direct experience in this part of the country is that most of the hospitals are much below the capacity that they were expecting, and there's a lot of doctors and nurses who are sitting on their asses, not doing very much. And we're not doing the urgent healthcare that we should be doing, and people are suffering really more from that than from COVID.
Very close friend of mine has just had his operation cancelled, and he was meant to be going in for cancer treatment for a major operation. Yeah, that's all. It is getting pushed back, and he's having all sorts of problems with it. And when I look at the mortality rates and I compare them, and I know this is insensitive, but I compare them to, say, people dying of hunger every day, it's tiny, 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 tiny numbers. And that's not to say that, it's not to say I don't feel for the people who are suffering, but we don't shut down an entire economy when whatever it is, 20, 25,000 people a day die of hunger.
No.
Why do it for this? It's strange.
It doesn't make sense at all, and it's just been very, very convenient. I mean, it's a great way to stop the protests that have been going on over the past couple of years. Although it's nice to see them starting to kind of fire up again.
Yes.
It was all those kind of Hong Kong sort of protests. They got in the bud, didn't they? Nice and quickly. And they banned cash, practically. You can't use cash almost anywhere right now. It's just perfect. You really couldn't make it up.
It makes me so happy that we have both the internet and Bitcoin. Because if we didn't, I think I'd be jumping out of a window right now. It would worry me too much.
I agree. I think it gives me a lot of hope. It's given me a lot more optimism about the future. I mean, it gives me a bit of insecurity as well, because the personal responsibility that it engenders in you can make you a bit of a nervous wreck sometimes.
Yes.
But if you can get a handle on that, and obviously you've got to get a handle on the volatility, you become pretty numb to that quite quickly, I think.
Well, you have to be, or you capitulate. It's one or the other.
Yeah, which is cool, it's a weak hand eliminator.
Yes. Exactly.
Slowly, we're getting a higher floor to the price because of more hodlers coming in and the weaker ones kind of dropping off. And it's pretty exciting. I mean, I heard there was a podcast I heard just this afternoon that knew kind of what Bitcoin did one about Bitcoin trading, and they talked about something that I hadn't really heard about much before, but the extra kind of selling pressure from the futures markets, like kind of BitMEX and stuff, seems to be actually increasing quite exponentially at the moment, which is a bit scary.
On the selling side, are you talking about?
Yeah, because these exchanges, they sell their fees, and so they sell their income in fees that they've accumulated from the traders. So it's a new sell pressure for Bitcoin that has grown quite a lot with the leverage that's increasingly allowed on these trades.
Yeah. I suppose you can look at it two ways. One is it's a concern that people are, you're going to have more people shorting this market, and you're going to have that sell pressure. However, the fact that it's holding up so well under that stress, kind of, you can look at it the other way and say, well, that makes me quite confident, because at the end of the day, the people who physically hold their keys are the only people that matter. If you run a node and hold your own keys, you matter, and no one else fucking matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and also I'm given a great deal of confidence by the fact that Bitcoin is just so damn small. Literally any other major asset class just needs to catch a cold or just to sneeze, and so Bitcoin, on the back of a little bump from a drop in one of those other large asset groups, like gold or property, for instance. I mean, we could 10x overnight. We could jump hugely.
Absolutely.
We are really rocking the ocean of value. Yeah. The only way's up, really, on the long term.
That's certainly the way I see it. And I mean, what are your thoughts on outside of Bitcoin? I don't know how much you look at these markets, but you just mentioned property. Do you have a view on whether all of this money printer burring away is going to inflate assets one more time? Or do you feel that there'll be a complete loss of confidence within the next 6 months to a year, and actually all of that money will most likely flow to assets like gold and Bitcoin?
It's a great question. I'm not a macroeconomist and particularly qualified to answer it, but my feeling is that there are a lot of smart people in the central banks, and they'll pull all the levers that they possibly can to keep it going as long as possible, and even one last time. But I mean, I do think more people are starting to wake up. I mean, it's still scary, the amount of people who are asleep, the amount of people in this country who just don't think, and they're sheep. And, that is quite scary. That does give me some concern. But I think people are beginning to realize that there's a lot of corruption involved in the legacy finance system. And I think this everything bubble has been getting out of hand for at least a couple of decades now. I mean, certainly hitting certain generations particularly hardly in terms of income, jobs, their likelihood of getting a property or getting on the ladder. It's been so unfair to a certain generation of people. And I don't think people can tolerate that.
I completely agree with you. And I'm somebody sat here, I'm an ex-property investor and developer, and it's served me well to ride on the coattails of these bubbles. However, I do see that it's causing a huge amount of problems for I mean, I am one, but for a lot of people, I've seen it's very, very difficult for them to get on the ladder. And when they are, they're having these schemes that I don't think are going to serve them particularly well in the end. And they're buying what I believe to be a toppy market, or getting close to, like you said, maybe there's one more cycle, but they don't understand that interest rates can move, and they don't understand that these things are actually liabilities, especially when they've only got 5% down. It is really worrying, actually, and I do feel.
Very worrying. I mean, you can't realistically say there's much chance of property going up anymore, really, can you? I mean, compared to
inflation
of income.
Yeah, certainly not like we've seen over the last 30 years. I don't think anyone is stupid enough to not question that. If we see property prices double from here, I don't know. I can't see it personally. I think it's unlikely. People would have to question it. And like you say, the difference between income and actually what these properties are going for, compare it to the generation before, the millennials, it's just worlds apart. It's absolutely worlds apart, and we actually have very, very low interest rates that makes it easier for them. But even with that, it's still unattainable. So, I think you're right. Hello?
Hey.
Hey, yeah, so I'm not sure where I lost you there.
Yeah, you lost me. So my battery charger came out of my phone. That little kind of USB-C charging port is getting just a bit too fucked.
I've heard they've had some vulnerabilities with those USB-C things.
Have they? Yeah, it's not.
Supposedly.
I don't know. The one hasn't served me well. It looks like that's going to be my main reason for going to the next phone is just that the charger port is just crap.
Have you tried this Graphene OS yet?
Yeah, I've got a Pixel 3 XL that I picked up on Amazon, just a kind of used one. And one of my lockdown projects was the Graphene OS, and it's good, man. It's really good. I'm using that phone maybe 50% of the time. I still am relying upon my previous Android phone, primarily because of my banking apps and a slow transition off Google.
It takes some time. I'm slowly moving away from Apple. I've got the same. I've got a Pixel 3, but I had some problems setting it up on my Mac, so I'm getting an old laptop to put Ubuntu on, and I'm trying to just get rid of. I'm trying to go just Linux and Graphene because.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. That's definitely the way to do it. I mean, the surveillance kind of capitalism stuff is most definitely here. So, the Tales from the Crypt sort of podcast, Matt Odell, OpenNoms have really opened my mind to how much you need to do to try and to try to kind of cloak stuff. I'm not there. It's a process, but I can see the path and I'm making steps. Linux as well on the laptop and Graphene.
Yeah, like you say, it's a slow process. I mean, I think sometimes, especially on Bitcoin Twitter, you have a lot of people who are either developers or very, very technical, and not all of us are. I think we're all going for the same goal of self-sovereignty, and you don't want to pay a company to spy on you. you want to have some privacy, but it's hard. It's the same thing. The whole system is designed to track and monitor everything you do and say, and it's really, really hard to actually get that privacy back, but it's well worth taking.
Well, I think in terms of the implementation of it, it's great that people have made these guides and the YouTube videos that explain it all. I think it's not hard, and to be honest, we probably all enjoy that kind of techie side of flashing the phone and all that shit. But you just need to think about and so those key kind of processes that need to take place in the background, though, don't you? Yeah, you need to think about things like, are you registered, and so is your name or an email address associated with this phone in any way? Is my name associated with the purchase of the SIM card? How do I kind of top up the SIM card? Am I going to have any Google apps on there? I mean, there's loads of little things to consider. If you mess up just the one of them, then essentially you can be tracked. So you've got to get it all right. And I think that does take a bit of thought and maybe just kind of more communication with people.
Yeah, having these groups. I mean, obviously we've got now our group I've just joined recently, which is just our UK one, and having those kind of communities of people on Twitter and being able to just reach out when we get stuck on things, because everyone has different areas of expertise and we all have a common goal. So it's really nice that you can reach out and people are very helpful generally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great community. I really do think it's a very supportive community. It's inspiring. There's some smart motherfuckers out there, man. I mean, it's really humbling. I went to the Lightning conference last year, the Berlin one. Wow, there's just such a lot of brains out there. I mean, it was really fuck. I mean, if anything, it's experiences like that that have made me quite, and so quite so kind of bullish as I am, just because I've seen the intelligence behind this, I've seen the thought behind it, I've seen the kind of people behind it, and don't think that these guys can all be wrong.
I'm with you there. There's many times, I don't know whether you've had the same thing, but where you lay there at night and you think, what am I doing? Everyone in life thinks I'm wrong. Everyone in life thinks I'm an idiot. They think I'm crazy. I would think to myself, I'm not smart enough. I've made a mistake. There's obviously something I'm missing here. But then, like you say, you go to like BitDevs or somewhere like that and you meet these people who are working on this and you think, yeah, maybe I'm wrong, but are all these people in this room wrong? And they are. I've never met a smarter group of people in my life, and I've been involved with a few different industries. They are different on a different level.
There's some really, really great thinkers out there. I mean, and so one of the other reasons why the sector is going to grow so much is the educational kind of aspect of it has improved such a lot in the past couple of years. Hey, I mean,
oh yeah,
level of the conversation, and so the kind of crystallization of the arguments and the memes and the points has just become so good that I think that was something that wasn't really around when I first got into it. You know, it was just Andreas Antonopoulos, you know, being awesome as fuck, of course, but you know, but that was practically it. Whereas now, bloody hell, there's such a lot of people talking about it, you know, and you hear a wide sea of voices, but they're all, you know, we've all got the same sort of hymn sheet.
Yeah, definitely. So when you first got in, or you first got involved, you obviously said, you know, you're doing some research and Silk Road and all that sort of stuff. What was the point where, because, you know, speaking to you now, I can tell, like I say, this is more than just making money to you and more just an interest. This is something bigger. What was the point that made you click? Was there something where you just, or a time where you just went, holy shit, this is big? You know, what was it that really grabbed you like that? Or was it just a lot of things all put together?
I don't know. I can't answer that particularly well. It was just everything. It just sort of made sense to me on a lot of levels. I felt that, you know, some of the angst and the uncertainty and so my observations over the past 10 to 15 years about the inequality of society and the increasing kind of division and of the potential for conflict and that this wasn't getting any better. I just, yeah. And so as we said before, there was a kind of lack of hope that I had before, but this gave me, but this kind of gave me that hope back. I mean, obviously I want to make money too. we all do. Yeah. We all do. But, yeah, but I do feel it's quite a lot more than that. And I'm not sure how it's going to pan out. Like, I'm not sure. I think there's going to be political parties that start, you know, that could start to move into this. There was a new political party launched just last week called Progressive International. I'm not sure if you've heard about it. But
I haven't.
You haven't, yeah. And so I don't really know that much about it, but I know they've got a very cool looking sort of social media thing going on. They've got a great website, and they've kind of cloned their social media across lots of languages. So they're a global kind of political party who are essentially trying to be an umbrella organization for lots of activist outsider kind of groups around the world. So, you know, they try to kind of suck up the environmentalists and the Extinction Rebellionists and the End the Fed lot and the, you know, all these people who get out on the streets to, you know, to kind of protest and have been for the past few years, that they're trying to unify their vision a bit more. And it's obviously very new. But I don't know. And so when I saw it, I thought, oh my God, something like this, if they were just to get if they were just to get the orange pill, you know?
Yeah.
And if they were to develop an economic plan that integrated Bitcoin, this could be a whole new political agenda. This could be a whole new direction because this thing looks like it could be global. This is a kind of combination of lots of movements. And they're essentially all a bit alternative.
For sure, because the other option, and probably the option that I see as more likely, but not necessarily good, is that if the entire system collapses and everyone loses all trust in all government, which they fucking well should do, really, with what's gone on. But if that does happen, there's going to be a lot of unrest. And for the people who haven't been involved with Bitcoin, there'll be a sort of a scramble, and it'd be very good for us financially, but I don't necessarily think it'd be very good for the world. So that idea of integrating it, you know, this is a separate financial system. If we can integrate it into some of the systems we already have and just replace, you know, who's currently governing us financially, it could potentially be much smoother. But I don't know how it happens, because
Nobody knows how it happens. I mean, I think it has to be a kind of parallel sort of evolution, doesn't it? I mean, we have to grow the alternative society and economy alongside the one that is currently there. It's not going to be a digital kind of black and white shift thing. It'll be, and so the people will opt out of the legacy system and they'll transact, maybe not exclusively, but to some degree and for certain things on Bitcoin. Probably Lightning.
Yeah.
And I think that will gradually, hopefully that's gradually going to grow and we will have the peaceful revolution that Nick Carter, kind of suggested, wrote about, which was really beautifully done.
He's got some wonderful writing. Really like it.
Nice, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I think most of us hope for is, for it to be as peaceful as possible. And really, when you're talking about voting, I think a lot of us do see stacking sats as a vote. Yeah. And the more people who realize that every time that you're stacking sats, every time that you are taking money from the traditional system, you're putting two fingers up and saying, fuck you, I'm not having it anymore. I want out. I don't trust you. I want to trust in maths. I want to trust in physics. And I don't want to trust a load of people who keep taking the piss and keep abusing the trust that we give them. And it doesn't necessarily need that many people. It needs just a few of these, like you're saying, these fringe movements to say, nah, we're out, we're finished. And things can move very quickly.
Yeah, no, I think we're at a stage in my mind where we need to try to step outside of the Bitcoin we need to try to step outside of the echo chamber and try to focus on targeting some other echo chambers. I think that's
Extinction Rebellion and those like you mentioned.
Well, I mean, I've been thinking about those, but there again, thinking about it a little more, maybe if we are trying to ally ourselves with organizations which are fringe and pretty fiery and people want to ban anyway, that might not be good for the sector. I'm not sure, I mean, I don't want to go down the vanilla kind of fintech route the whole time. I want it to be a little bit of a social sort of revolution, but I think we've got to be careful who we get into bed with as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's a complex thing, but luckily we're not in control. Nobody's in control.
Yeah.
It's just going to do its own fucking thing, really. But I'm going to be memeing from the sidelines and just doing whatever I can to contribute to the conversation.
Well, these memes are a massive part of it. I had Cypher Diaries on the other day, and there was a really awesome guy, and there was a bit in his story, and he's saying, this isn't a war that is fought with guns and bullets. This is a war that is fought with ideas and memes, and it's so true. It's so true.
Well, they're very powerful. They're like little mind viruses. And we all know the power of a virus right now.
Yes.
Yeah, and the government, we can all see through that propaganda, I think, It's very transparent, and we've heard it all before, and there's nothing new. So, yeah, people can switch over to Bitcoin in terms of the conversation, and so they can just come drop in to our social media, and they can see what we're doing and what we're talking about. And I hope that continues. I hope there's not the deplatforming that people are a bit worried about. It's difficult to know, how far above the parapet that you're prepared to put your head.
It's hard.
That's why I've stuck with the anon thing. I mean, I'm sure someone could find me out if they wanted to, but it just means that I don't have to worry about it too much. I don't have to worry about the implications of what I tweet or say or what have you.
I'm in the same boat, and it does worry me, if I'm honest. It wouldn't have worried me a couple of years ago when I was single and I had no, I didn't care. I was just like, do what he wants me, I'm not bothered. But now I have other people in my life. Yeah, sticking your head above the parapet is worrying, but equally, you have to, because this is so fucking important. And if you're going to bring children into this world, it has to be a better world.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a great point. But also, I mean, I've got a lot of respect for people who are not anonymous in the sector,
Yeah.
people who put their name and their personality out there and their identity. And, some people put their families out there, which is kind of cool. But, I'm not quite there yet. But
No.
it's great that people are doing that. And it'd be good to try to normalize Bitcoin a bit more for people by having this conversation out in the open. But I haven't quite worked it out in my own head yet, so I'm going to continue with the anonymous vibe for at least a bit longer.
I think that's wise, certainly until we can, like you say, just refining the meme. You made a good point about we all know that it's bullshit. And it's not just Bitcoiners. Like, if you speak to, certainly in England, you speak to 80% of people, and like when politicians speak or, when these things happen, they're like, they know deep down it's bullshit, but they don't know there's another option. So it's showing that there's another option, and it isn't just some nonsense, because that's what most people think of Bitcoin. If they really understood it, they're like, oh, okay, all right, well, because if there's no other option, you kind of just have to go along with it. I mean, I used to. I was just like, I just don't care who's in, because they're all lying. I don't care. I just don't care. They're all lying. But now there's this. So it's how do you think we, other than the memes, or is there a way to refine these things to a point where just the average person can understand this stuff a little bit quicker? Because it's so much time we have to put into understanding it. That's the problem.
It is a lot of time. I mean, the amount of time that I've spent just reading or listening to podcasts about all this stuff is quite crazy, really. And I'm still learning, you never stop. But, I mean, I've got, it's great that you've got people like kind of Peter McCormack, doing the Bitcoiners kind of beginner guide thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we just launched that sort of condensed version of all 12 down to one sort of episode. I mean, It's all about trying to crystallize it and refine it as much as you possibly can, so that you can make those kind of referrals to people who ask you, you're the Bitcoin guy, and you want to give them a couple of good links, a little bit of a kind of soundbite chat. You want to be directing them to the reliable exchanges sort of locally, and give them, some hardware and some software decisions or options to think about. But I mean, it's not, I think we're getting a lot better, and it's becoming obvious to me where to direct people now and how to introduce them to Bitcoin in the most efficient way. I mean, I've been having that conversation with quite a lot of people over the past few weeks. More and more people are coming to me and asking about it, which is great. I mean, and so my non-Bitcoin social media thing, I try not to post any Bitcoin stuff, but unfortunately, every so often something does can come through. And so people do know, but I try not to push it down people's throats or anything. But they certainly do know to ask me if they've got any curiosity. And a lot more people asking me lately, which is very bullish,
What's the reason generally that people are coming to you now? Because I assume, like you say, people know, when you're a Bitcoiner, people know generally. And normally no one gives a shit, no matter how much you tell them or try and help them, they don't care. So what's changed? Is it the virus or is it something else?
I think it's the virus. Yeah, I mean, economic lockdown has given people a lot of time to think and to look at this quasi sci-fi dystopia that we're living in, and see the obscene money printing, and just do some some kind of bar maths, kind of maths on it, and realize that this is not adding up. This doesn't work. And then the Bitcoin price has been a little bit interesting this past 12 months. Hey, we went up to 14K. I mean, it's and so we've just had the halvening. We've had some big events that have hit the media again.
Mm-hmm.
I think people who are smart have had their ear to the ground for it for a bit, and they're beginning to hear the sound of the train coming on the tracks again. And so they're just thinking, I want a piece of this, and they know I can help to onboard them. and I'm very happy with. And so CoinFloor is where I'm directing the UK people who are asking me about it, because I think they've got a pretty good service at the moment, which is awesome.
It's brilliant. I had Obi on a couple of days ago. I haven't actually released the show yet, but I was really hoping, because I'd heard him on another podcast before, and I was like, do you know what? This sounds like a really awesome thing that he's doing here. And I love that he was just Bitcoin, and I love that it was dollar cost averaging or pound cost averaging. And I was just like, please, please, please be a real Bitcoiner. Don't be a fraud like a lot of the other people in the space. And after chatting to him, I was like, yes, I can finally feel comfortable sending people to this guy, because he really actually gets it and cares. And that's so nice to see.
It's good. I think they're doing everything they can do right. I think it's pretty damn hard to do a Bitcoin company in the UK. A couple of friends and I were going to be launching a Lightning exchange, a kind of Lightning on-ramp in the UK. You know, we've been speaking to the Financial Conduct Authority and getting AML registration with the government and stuff. And I was prepared to go on with it, but my partners were a bit reluctant to have to KYC people for quite low denomination sort of Lightning buys. And we decided to put things on pause for a little bit, or maybe to try to kind of pivot into something else. But I mean, it really is, it's an absolute bloody ball ache to get through the regulation and legislation in this country. Europe, I think, is even worse because of that AML 5D stuff. Yeah. So what Obi's done to have this longest running UK exchange that's doing everything you can do right, I think is awesome, and we should be supporting companies like his as much as we possibly can, really.
100%, and I like that. I like that it's only dollar cost averaging. You know, when you're first signing up, because and it's only Bitcoin and it's only dollar cost averaging, because that is for 99.9999% of people the best, the safest way to play it, and that's the only option. So it's like, if you're sending a friend or family there, you're like, you know that, okay, they can't actually fuck this up. Whereas you send them to the other shitcoin casinos, and like, it's just so stressful, because you know they're going to come back and go, oh, I bought XRP, and you're like, oh, fuck's sake, Jesus Christ, I spent so much time explaining.
No, it's great. It's great they've got a pretty simple system, and for it to be in GB pounds as well with the UK faster payments thing is fantastic, because you know, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been converting to euros and doing kind of SEPA transactions since the beginning. And
it's a pain.
It is a bit of a pain. I mean, it's pretty much the norm for me now, but it's not really. You don't really want to have to be explaining that to people who you know probably are going to struggle with it. Whereas,
No, I was just going to say, and it's nice to have something in the middle, because what I'd done before I'd spoken to Obi, what I was doing to everyone was, first it was like, you know, the normal shit, Coinbase, Kraken, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I can't do that anymore. So then I was helping people I was buying for them on their behalf and holding their storage and all that. And then that got too messy because it was friends. Because it was friends and family. And I was like, do you know what? I don't feel comfortable doing this anymore, because it's at my risk.
But you were doing that under your ID.
Yeah, I was doing it all under mine, and I thought in the end, I was like, you know, as much as I want to help these people, I can't do this, but I didn't want to send them to Coinbase. So then I said, you know, what I'll do is, everyone, you need to go on BISC. And I was trying to send people over to do that, but it was too complicated, and they just couldn't, like, it's not that complicated, but it was too complicated for people coming into the space. So
I only recently sort of tried BISC, and I must admit it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. It was actually it was great for me. But I think that for some people, they do encounter a little bit of an issue just with a certain kind of vendor. But if you've got a good vendor, I mean, the infrastructure of it seems to work a dream.
It's pretty good. It's just not slick enough. It scares newbies. But once you've used it a couple of times, I absolutely love this. But to have CoinFloor, which sort of sits in the middle, and it's just perfect for onboarding newbies. Yeah, I'm thankful to have it.
I agree. Yeah, they're doing a great job. And hopefully the UK Bitcoin scene will be benefiting from that.
Yeah. It would be nice to at some point maybe do a meetup or something like that. Obviously, after all this stuff is over and people are out their houses, but you know, it would be cool to do something.
I agree. That'd be cool.
All right. Well, is there anything else? Because we've cut out a couple of times and we've gone through, I think, most of the subjects that I personally wanted to go through, and we've covered a broad, a lot of different topics. But is there anything else that you sort of wanted to touch on, or anything you felt we hadn't discussed that you wanted to go through?
No, not particularly. It's been a great conversation, Max. I've really enjoyed it. And so thank you for taking the time. And and so good luck with everything and keep doing what you're doing.
I will do. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you as well. And we'll catch up, I'm sure, on Twitter and on our other meetings and all that sort of stuff. But it's been great to chat properly. And thanks for what you're doing and making these incredible memes and spreading the message. And can you just say again, I'm going to put it in the show notes again, but where people can find you?
Twitter, self-banked with a KT at the end.
Fantastic. All right. That's brilliant. Thanks again. And I'm sure we'll speak soon.
All the best. Bye.